Hi, ladies. I'm excited to jump into these verses with you tonight and really dive into discussing the armor of God. So let's first read the passage. It's Ephesians 6, and we're reading verses 10 through 13. It says, "A final word, be strong with the Lord's mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies and tricks of the devil. For we are not fighting against people made of flesh and blood, but against the evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against those mighty powers of darkness who rule this world, and against wicked spirits in the heavenly realms. Use every piece of God's armor to resist the enemy in the time of evil, so that after the battle you will still be standing firm." I just love the promises and the challenge that come to us in those passages and in those verses about standing firm in the armor of God. So I want us to really dive in and just kind of talk about what those verses are telling us and equipping us to do. So it begins by saying, "Be strong with the Lord's mighty power." You know, that sentence can really be interpreted one of two ways, depending on where you put the emphasis. So the first way is to say, "Be strong with the Lord's mighty power," implying like, be strong with how you handle the power of the Lord that is given to you. So be strong with the Lord's mighty power. And I love that because it's saying like, don't make excuses to be a follower of Jesus. Don't apologize for being a follower of Jesus, but be strong with the Lord's mighty power that he has given to you. Enable it to make you strong. He's saying like, represent the Lord's mighty power well as you go about your life. Make sure that the way that you live your life is representing Jesus well, and we're representing the Lord's mighty power. The other way to read that sentence is put the emphasis on the first part instead of the second. Be strong with the Lord's mighty power. In other words, the Lord's mighty power is what makes you strong. I think both of the ways of reading that sentence are true. We have to be strong with the power that is given to us. We have to represent it well, and we also have to allow that power to make us strong. And that's part of putting on the armor of God, that it makes us strong, because the promise at the end of those verses is that at the end of the battle, you will stand. That's our goal, is that we're standing at the end of the battle. So how do we do that? Well, the first way we do that is to be strong with the mighty power of the Lord. It also tells us that we need to make sure we put on all of God's armor so that we will be able to stand firm against all of the tricks of the devil. I love that because the devil doesn't come at us only one way. There's a lot of strategies, there's a lot of tricks, and God's power, his armor, has been given to us in multiple different ways so that we have the equipment and the strength that we need to fight all the different strategies that the devil uses. I think there is a piece of armor for every trick that the devil has. God is that good that he saw to it to give us the equipping that we need in every way. It's just important that we recognize that we can't just pick up one piece of the armor, but we're supposed to put on all of the armor. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge football fan. I love watching football, especially the NFL, not so much about college. But anyway, if you've ever looked at the behind the scenes and watched what happens with the players before they ever take the field and they're putting on their equipment, there's so much. It's not just one piece of equipment that they put on. They have a helmet, they have a face mask, they have shoulder pads, they have a chin cup, they have hip and tailbone pads, they have back and thigh pads, they have a back plate, they have a vision shield for their eyes, they have a mouth guard. There's so many pieces that they have to put on in order to be prepared to enter into the game. And the last piece of equipment that they put on is their jersey. And I love that because their jersey is a part of their armor. The jersey is what gives them their identity. It tells them what team they're playing for. It tells them what their name is. It tells them what their position is according to their number. There's such a strategy behind the equipment that you need if you're going to play the game and not get hurt and play the game and win. And I just think that lines up right with what this passage of scripture is saying, is that we need to put on the full armor of God, not just the helmet, not just the back plate or the breastplate, not just the shoes for our feet, but every single piece has to go on if we're going to be successful and be able to stand at the end. the verses also go on and tell us that we have to know our enemy. It talks about how we're not fighting against flesh and blood, but we're fighting against the prince of the air and against demons and against those different strategies. And we have to know our enemy. That's part of putting on your armor. That's what a good player does in any sport, is they study their opponent. They have to know how their opponent plays the game if they're going to play the game strategically and if they're going to win. My husband and I watched a movie a couple weeks ago. It was a great movie, and it's called The Final Season, and it's a story about a baseball team, high school baseball team in Iowa, and there's a scene where the batter is in the batting box and he's getting ready to take the pitch, and the coach walks out to him and he says to him, he's going to pitch to you low and away and you will pop it up to the shortstop. And the player looks at the coach and he goes, how do you know that? And the coach looks at the player and he says, oh, it's easy. I scouted him. He's really saying, I studied him. I studied the opponent so that I would know how he's going to play the game. Isn't that part of putting on our armor, that we have to know the enemy? We have to know who we're fighting. We have to know how he fights and how he works so that we can be proactive in our fight and not reactive. So important that we understand our position and understand the position of the enemy so that we're fighting in a way that we win. We really do need to be offensive instead of defensive. And that's what these verses are talking about when it says, put on the armor of God, take up all of the pieces, put them on from head to toe so that you are ready to enter into the battle and fight against the enemy in all of the different ways that the enemy may come after you. And I love that it talks about the enemy, but it talks even more about the power of God, and that is how we win. That is how we're standing at the end of the battle, is because we've prepared ourselves and we've strategically positioned ourselves with the armor of God to be a winner in the battle. And that's how those verses end. It says, so after the battle, you will be standing firm. You know who's left standing firm at the end of the battle? It's the person who prepared for it, the person who put on their armor, and the person who studied their opponent. So my challenge to you this month, as we're talking about the armor of God, is to really study what you're putting on, how you're putting it on, and how the enemy works, so that you too are standing firm.